Dear fellow Logophiles, I am meeting you after a long and otherwise busy hiatus to present to you one of my all-time favorites, John Donne. It is difficult to pick one from out of Donne's prolific writings, but I will choose just one poem for now, the Canonization, which captures so well the unusual and dichotomous integration of love and God that Donne's poetry is justly famous for. Let me recite it for you. The Canonization, 1633. For God's sake, hold your tongue and let me love, or chide my palsy or my gout, my 5 grey hairs or ruined fortune flout. With wealth your state, your mind with arts improve. Take you a course, get you a place, observe his honor or his grace, or the king's real or his stamped face. Contemplate what you will approve, so you will let me love. Alas, alas, who's injured by my love? What merchant ships have my sighs drowned? Who says my tears have overflowed his ground? When did my colds a forward spring remove? When did the heats which my veins fill add one more to the plaguy bill? Soldiers find wars and lawyers find out still litigious men which quarrels move, though she and I do love. Call us what you will, we are made such by love. Call her one and me another fly. We are tapers too, and at our own cost die. And we in us find the eagle and the dove. The phoenix riddle hath more wit by us. We two being one are it. So to one neutral thing both sexes fit. We die and rise the same, and prove mysterious by this love. We can die by it, if not live by love. And if unfit for tombs and hearse, our legend be, it will be fit for verse. And if no piece of chronicle we prove, we'll build in sonnets pretty rooms. As well a well-wrought urn becomes the greatest ashes as half-acre tombs, and by these hymns all shall approve us canonized for love. And thus invoke us, you whom reverend love made one another's hermitage, you to whom love was peace that now is rage, who did the whole world's soul contract and drove into the glasses of your eyes, so made such mirrors and such spies that they did all to you epitomize. Countries, towns, courts beg from above a pattern of your love. The Canonization is a difficult poem, but closer analysis of its language and imagery is rewarding. First, however, let us take a brief look at the poet and his times. English writer and Anglican cleric John Donne is considered now to be the preeminent metaphysical poet of his time. The age of Donne was an age of transition, standing midway between the age of Shakespeare and the Jacobean age. His work is distinguished by its emotional and sonic intensity and its capacity to plumb the paradoxes of faith, salvation, and love, both human and divine love. Donne often employs conceits or extended metaphors to yoke together heterogeneous ideas, thus generating a powerful ambiguity. Popular within a select circle in his own times, Donne saw a resurgence in his popularity in the early 20th century, regaining his standing as a great English poet and writer of English prose. Back to the poem. By titling his poem The Canonization, Donne prepares his readers, you and I, for a religious poem, but delivers something quite different. Canonization in the Catholic Church occurs when individuals prove themselves practitioners of heroic or exceptional virtue. Canonization precedes the granting of sainthood. The 5 stanzas of the poem thematically correspond to the steps of Christian canonization. But in this poem, the religious terms and structure are used to convince us that his sensual love is an elevated bond that is saintliness itself. The poem, which reads as both a justification and an assertion of sensual and sexual love, proceeds to validate the holiness of his love, concluding with the expectation that his saintly relationship will become a model for others. Donne often used the technique of presenting sensual love as holy love, as in a valediction forbidding mourning, among others. Yet, Donne's arrival at his triumphant conclusion of holy love is anything but straightforward. He presents his proposition as a series of quick and tightly knit arguments befitting a thesis, and the arguments itself are arrived at in a non-linear in steps that employ poetic tools of irony, subversion, and satire that lead us to its inevitable but hardly foreseeable conclusion. The mood changes too, from the self-effacing "leave me alone" tone to mockery, to beseeching, to assertion, to the final exaltation. At the beginning, the tone is provocative. As the rest of the poem, it addresses an antagonist who is critical of the poet's love as a trivial pursuit and gossips about it. The opening line, "For God's sake, hold your tongue and let me love," demonstrates with refreshing directness Donne's genius for grabbing our attention right from the first line. A poem with a theological title, The Canonization, begins with a blasphemy, "for God's sake," clearly playing ironic games with us, the readers. The poet next offers the antagonist substitute targets for slander, including his own physical infirmities, his palsy, gout, and 5 grey hairs. Not only could the antagonist attack him simply for his age, which amounts to petty cruelty, but he might criticize the poet's lack of material goods and social position, his ruined fortune flout. But the pathetic and withdrawing tone soon changes. The poet becomes belligerent and offensive. His next lines belittle the antagonist. "Take you a course, get you a place," suggesting that he has so little to do that he rebukes an innocent. And the reason is clear. The antagonist is part of a world that values worldly affairs above love. Here too there is a twist. Activities that at first glance seem to have high status, serving his honor or his grace or a king, are revealed as born of sycophancy, cupidity, and hypocrisy, nothing more than fawning upon the great for self-aggrandizement. Thus, Donne makes it clear that these positions of service are just servility, toadyism, implying that its whole value system is questionable. Observe his honor or his grace, flatter a judge or a bishop. These are men who can offer patronage to sycophants. Most of all, the monarch. Contemplate the king's real or his stamped face. Admire or be seen to admire the king, or gaze upon money, which is the real object of your desire. Donne concludes the first stanza by establishing himself as an innocent, set upon by those who follow far less noble pursuits. In the second stanza, there is a dramatic change of tone from ornery to pleading. Alas, alas, who is injured by my love? The poet is concerned that because of the antagonist's judgment, he will not be allowed to continue his love. Exasperated at being reprimanded for his amorous life, he responds not by apologizing for it, but rather by mischievously pleading for the social world to permit love to exist in some small, devalued, insignificant corner of its realm. At the same time, he subtly develops the satire. The love of power, wealth, military or judicial conquest, these are the pursuits that society respects. Donne adopts a tone of resigned agreement about this state of affairs, as much as to say, yes, I see your point. Greed and envy and power for its own sake, these are extremely important things. They motivate the society and so they should be valued. But at least my romantic love does not interfere with them. Despite my love, greed and envy and exploitation still thrive. So why should you complain? The irony is heavy here, where the repertoire of the courtly love tradition, sighs and tears and colds and heats and so on, is sarcastically played off against the realities of a vulgar, mean and exploitative world. The juxtaposition escalates to the level of the absurd as he contrasts small actions such as a lover's sigh or tears with grand events such as the sinking of merchant ships. Having reduced his antagonist to the level of a fool while pretending to beg for mere tolerance, the poet moves into the next stanza, inviting others to label him and his beloved whatever they wish. Labels do not alter the reality of their love. Thus, by the end of the second stanza, the poet has effectively belittled the world that has censured him for his romantic loving, and so has opened up the potential for a full ironic subversion, which he achieves in the third stanza by a bold and witty maneuver. Significantly, the imagery effects the same kind of ironic inversion as the argument attempts. Call us what you will. Call her one, me another fly. We are tapers too, and at our own cost die. The taper metaphor invokes thoughts of burning candles which disappear as he and his lover might eventually die, consumed by their passion. But he does not stop there. Donne next compares the lovers to the eagle and the dove. He seems to say, you may see us as small and insignificant as flies, but we feel that we are the eagle and the dove. And further, because we die and rise the same, we are like the phoenix. So, the image of the fly is transfigured first into the eagle and the dove, and then into the phoenix, suggesting constant renewal born of the heat of passion which keeps him young despite his advanced age. The stanza concludes with the Platonic notion that two lovers could join to form a perfect whole. We die and rise the same and prove mysterious by this love. In this way, the changing imagery propels the poem towards its blasphemous and self-celebratory conclusion. It is both bold and witty because the argument turns essentially on the notion of death and resurrection. Because the lovers rise again after they die, they endure beyond their own death. There is something mysterious, even miraculous about them, and this denotes their sanctification. They are saints of love and should be canonized as such. Donne carries the idea of love and death and renewed eternal life into the penultimate stanza. We can die by it, if not live by love, suggesting that once dead, the lovers will become the subject of legend and chronicle, their story preserved as an example to others. Even if history ignores their story, it will certainly be a worthy subject of art. We'll build in sonnets pretty rooms. As well, a well-wrought urn becomes the greatest ashes as half-acre tombs. This suggestion leads to the final stanza, in which the poet becomes almost brazen. He broaches the blasphemous suggestion that his physical love is equal to that of canonized saints, claiming that the very antagonist attacking him now will accept the poet's love as a model for his own. Donne incorporates words such as invoke and reverend, suggesting religion. In the penultimate line, Donne adapts his frequent method for emphasis of an idea, expanding the individual concern to universal proportions. Countries, towns, courts beg from above a pattern of your love. So, the central conceit of the poem is this. The poet catalogues the worldly concerns of society, but simultaneously poses an alternative value system. This alternative system is composed of all that is marginalized or suppressed in the mainstream. As it does so, the alternative system threatens to displace the plainly mean, immoral order that is systematically discredited by the poet's satire. The central moral impulse of this new value system is romantic love, whose value is confirmed by its perdurability, its capacity to endure beyond the trivial things and the petty desires of society. So the very love that the antagonist first perjures as earthly because of its sensuality and sexuality offers an alternative to the crass materialistic world. Because of its rejection of the material, its acceptance of self-sacrifice, and its emphasis on beauty and love, it transcends from the sensual and earthly to a spiritual and saintly love and elevates the lovers to saints worthy of canonization. Us canonized for love. I think nowhere else in English poetry is there an equivalent image of love triumphant. Nowhere is there celebrated a sense of love that is as mature yet passionate, as thoughtful yet abandoned, as spiritual yet eroticized. And yet this celebration of the giving of the self to the romantic other in an intensely private union clearly does not reflect the social actualities of the period. Indeed, it is precisely for this reason that the poet feels obliged to defend himself from worldly admonishment. Donne was a kind of pathfinder on this adventure. His poetry is a lyrical dramatization of the exploring self and the exploring soul in its moments of emotional and spiritual intensity. And from the midst of this intensity, it brings into view and into being the elemental forms of our modern sensibility. And that is why it is still valuable today, because the experience it discovers is still compellingly our own. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you all very much.